Welcome viewers and participants to the last and the third panel of the Dhaka event for Singapore FinTech Festival and UNCDF joint initiative. So the third panel is around on accelerating green and sustainable RMG sector role of digital solutions. So this panel will be moderated by Mr. Andreas Fransson. And we also have with us three panelists. So Mr. Moderator will introduce them. We also have with us our honorable guest for closing today's event, Mr. Zeaul Alam PAA, Senior Secretary ICT Division, Governments of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. So Mr. Andreas Fransson has worked in the fashion industry earlier and then joined the UNCDF regional office in Bangkok. He is currently working in the regional office. So I welcome Mr. Andreas Fransson to take over the role of moderator and conduct his session. Over to you, Mr. Andreas Fransson.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. Hosted in partnership with the Singapore FinTech Festival on building inclusive economies in the digital era. My name is Andreas Fransson, and I will be the moderator for this session that will discuss accelerating green and sustainable ready-made garment sector, the role of digital solutions in Bangladesh. I am pleased to have a distinguished panel to introduce for our discussion today. Firstly, I would like to introduce Ms. Keyzom Masali, Asia Pacific Regional Lead at the Better Than Cash Alliance. Thank you for being here, Keyzom. Next, we have Ms. Bernadette Blom, Director of the Good Fashion Fund. Thank you for joining us. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Rubana, President of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, or BGMEA. Thank you so much for joining us. Before starting our conversation, I want to remind our participants to please share your questions through the chat box in the MS Teams platform or comment on the live stream, as we want this to be as interactive as possible. We will take one or two questions to continue the conversation during the Q&A. Without further ado, we will go ahead with the first question for our panelists. And the first question is for Ms. Rubana to kick us off. Ms. Rubana, the ready-made garment sector in Bangladesh has faced great challenges due to the ongoing global COVID-19 crisis, during which we have now seen an increase in adoption of digital financial services among garment workers in response. From the manufacturer's perspective, what do you see are the challenges ready-made garment owners face that investors and development partners can address and unlock further investments in the sector in a post-COVID-19 scenario?
Bangladesh right now offers the most stable supply chain, and this is a given, considering the 7 years of remediation that has happened in the sector. Also with COVID-19, with the incredible support that we got from our Honorable Prime Minister and the policymakers, so automatically we were at least supported by giving a loan to support the salaries of our workers for 4 months at a lower interest rate. So the only prerequisite of the loan was that we would have to digitally disperse the salaries. Now, I must be honest, I mean, before we didn't even have 40% of the workers being given their salaries digitally. But with COVID, overnight, in about 15 days, we literally had to transform the sector into a fully digital platform because we had no other option. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting the money. So this was a positive challenge for us, and we've taken it very, very positively. So before COVID, Andreas, we had devised a digital wallet already. So we were gearing up for a digital platform. But in the meantime, when this came through, we used the MFSs and the banks, and we dispersed the salaries digitally to the workers directly. So this helped because, one, the disbursement was quick. We lost no time in disbursement, and also everyone was satisfied that the salary package had reached the hands of the workers. The only thing that was difficult at that point of time was we didn't know whether the new orders would come in or whether the cancelled orders would be reinstated. These were challenges. So approximately $3.15 billion worth of cancellation plagued the sector overnight. And with intense negotiation and with a lot of appeals and urges and even YouTube videos, we made an appeal and we said, look, it directly impacts the livelihoods of the workers because Bangladesh pays around $423 million wages per month. So it's not a measly amount. So we literally saw almost no option but to go to the buyers and say, please reinstate orders. So the buyers did, 90% of the orders did come back, but at a great cost also. So what happened, the challenges was deferred payment. Now that's a challenge that we also have. The country also has a couple of challenges apart from just digital payment. We have, we have value addition challenge. We do need a lot of man-made fiber-based textile support in Bangladesh. So we would welcome any FDI in that regard. And also, it's about the reskilling of the workers for the next level. Because with fourth industrial revolution, we are going to have those challenges. So, development partners, investors could come forward and also help us address these challenges which relate to direct value addition, because branding of Bangladesh needs to be done. Many a times the stories of our workers are not even known to the outside world. And because we have so many green factories, but we still don't have any green prices. And in terms of even social compliance, we've gone a long way, but there's just no one carrying these messages forward. So positive messaging, investment in man-made fiber-based backward linkage in Bangladesh, and of course, any help in digitization and an attempt to be transparent would be welcome by us.
Thank you so much, Rubana. Indeed, there's a potential of digitalization further, and this can also help in building back a better and more sustainable industry going through this crisis and building it back better after this crisis. Thank you so much. I want to now turn our attention to Ms. Bernadette Blom, Director of the Good Fashion Fund. Bernadette, from an investor perspective, what do you see are the critical factors in terms of supply chain governance and sustainability issues for the ready-made garment sector in Bangladesh in a post-COVID-19 scenario? And what could investors such as yourselves and development partners do to unlock further investment in the sector?
Thank you very much, Andreas, for the introduction and the question. And I'm really pleased to be part of this panel. Well, the current processing garment supply chains have severe negative environmental and social impacts. At present, fashion supply chains are heavily polluting and wasteful, and various social challenges exist, including low wage levels, long working hours, health and safety conditions, and lack of transparency, and sometimes gender inequalities. An investment in technology can help building a better industry from the social and the governance sustainability perspective. So improving workers' rights and conditions, and also improving the sector's ability on coping from impacts of any future shocks. So circular innovations to address the environmental elements are not yet being adopted at scale. And there are sustainable solutions available for manufacturers, but they often lack the ability, the knowledge, but also the investment capacity to, for instance, invest in production technology. Existing technologies are sometimes unsafe and unhealthy and expose workers and the environment to considerable damage. The Good Fashion Fund was established last year, September, initiated by the Lawless Foundation and Fashion for Good, and established in the Netherlands. And the fund focuses actually on providing manufacturers with long-term US dollar loans to adopt impact technology. So what do we mean with impact technology, and what is the benefit for the manufacturer? Well, the value proposition for a manufacturer is, of course, that they are able to invest in technology that leads to a reduction in water, energy, or materials use, And at the same time, the Good Fashion Fund is also looking at, as we call it, good lives. That means at the social elements in a manufacturer. So when we assess, we're doing an investment actually, we developed jointly with the manufacturer an environmental and social action plan. And that action plan is actually linked to our investment. So it's actually listing improvements on the environmental and social side that are implemented during the term of our loan. So we not only provide capital, but also technical, environmental and social knowledge. So we work with very expertized partners like the Fairware Foundation on the social side. And for the benefit for the manufacturer in addition to this is also a cost benefit, because for instance less water is used in the process, that also leads to cost reductions. At the same time, for investors it's really important, once a manufacturer has the ability to invest in social and environmental impact and governance issues are addressed, it becomes less risky for investors, and it will also lead to, and that's also one of the ambitions of the Good Fashion Fund, so not only remain the only investor, but actually actively demonstrate successes and share our knowledge and make sure that that other investors can either copy our business model or at least consider investing in the manufacturers. And the focus of our fund is on the mid-sized manufacturers. And our investments typically relate to capital intensive and high impact equipment, for instance for dyeing, washing, printing and wastewater treatment, which has a positive impact on the environment, but also on the workforce in terms of conditions, safety and health, for instance. If you look at the social innovations, we can invest smaller amounts actively in the social sustainability, for example, financial services, health services, or educational technology and worker engagement tools. And this also, of course, affects the ESG investment parameters. And that means increased competitive and reduced risk for the manufacturer. So it will lead to more investments, but also the brands that, of course, very much focused on social sustainability, they will also consider this manufacturing more as their client. I think that's it all leads to building a better, more sustainable sector. That's the aim of the Good Fashion Fund. So we call it promoting the good lives in the factories. That will support a better industry and also unlock further investments.
Thank you so much, Bernadette. Indeed, investors and development partners could facilitate building back a better industry by supporting ready-made garment owners and the ecosystem of also digital service providers, not only in financial services, but other edtech, health tech services, to adopt digital services to help it achieve its potential impact towards building a more sustainable industry in this post-COVID-19 scenario. Thank you so much, Bernadette, for your comments. I would like to finally going on to the third speaker, Ms. Keyzom. And Ms. Keyzom, we mentioned earlier that the ready-made garment sector in Bangladesh has faced great challenges due to the ongoing global COVID-19 crisis. And we have now seen an increase, which we touched upon with Rubana, an increase in adoption of digital financial services among garment workers in response. We have seen a rapid increase in adoption of digital financial services, particularly mobile money, earlier on this year in response to the crisis, yet there are still challenges remaining to sustain its impact. How can we ensure the momentum of mobile money adoption by ready-made garment workers is not lost? And what use cases do we need to build upon to provide them with a digital ecosystem to operate in?
Thank you, Andreas, for that question and for having me on this very esteemed panel. Assalamu alaikum to Mr. Zeaul, Senior Secretary at the Government of Bangladesh, and to also Dr. Haq and my co-panelist, Ms. Blom. Andreas, to your question, the COVID-19 crisis is having a significant and widespread effect on digital payments worldwide, including, of course, in Bangladesh and in the ready-made garment sector. And most striking and potentially lasting impact is the accelerating pace of change. As you heard from Dr. Haq as well, when in March, when the government of Bangladesh, who is also a member of the Better Than Cash Alliance, announced the $500 million stimulus package to pay workers' salary in export-oriented sectors, including, of course, the RMG sector, which accounts for 80% of the country's export. Only 1.5 million workers were paid digitally, as we heard from Dr. Haq as well, only 40%. To ensure that the money reaches the rightful recipients, the government made it mandatory for factories to submit mobile account details of factory workers. And in just 15 days, as Dr. Haq also said, 2.5 million accounts were opened through mobile financial services. So the changes that we're seeing in this pandemic in 2020 is that the momentum is 4 or 5 times faster than before. And this puts all actors in the payment landscape, as well as the government and, of course, the factories, under tremendous pressure to transform and adapt, and not to forget the RMG workers themselves as well. And I think it's important for us to understand how this massive shift from analog to digital was possible. And from my perspective, as the Better Than Cash Alliance, it was because of 3 enabling factors in Bangladesh. You know, it's not an overnight change. It's something that everyone on this panel from Bangladesh, as well as others, have been working on for the last many years. The first is the comprehensive digital payments architecture that's developed by the government's flagship digital transformation program and adopted by a large number of public and private sector players. The second is the eKYC regulation that was passed by the central bank, Bangladesh Bank, that supported bulk account creation by linking with consumers' biometrically verified national IDs. And the third was a very strong commitment to digitize wages made at the Digital Wages Summit in November 2019 by BGMEA, by global brands like Gap, Marks & Spencer, Inditex, H&M, who are all members of the Better Than Cash Alliance. And most importantly, as Dr. Haq also said, by the esteemed leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister in the government of Bangladesh. And no doubt, the accelerated scale up is good news. But as you also rightly said, Andreas, how do we keep this momentum? Because, you know, as we speak today, we are also seeing the use of mobile money dropping as fast as they were opened. And I think to truly build a sustainable ecosystem, digital payments value proposition must be better than cash, and it must be done responsibly. It must build trust and capabilities in new users, like the RMG employees. Many of them are low income, many are underserved, many remain unfamiliar with and distrust digital payments. So closing that gap and you know, that digital divide will require an even stronger focus on inclusion, and especially on at-risk and marginalized groups, including the women who make up the large proportion of the RMG employees. And true adoption and continued use of digital accounts is going to come with ease of use, with more capabilities in terms of digital literacy, as well as how they use it beyond, of course, you know, receiving their wages at merchants, at services, the use cases, so to speak. And really, this is, you know, one of the really important ways of sustaining momentum and continuing to build back better. Lastly, I would say, you know, the core value proposition for sustained adoption is going to depend on ultimate interoperability. And this is something that Dr. Haq, as well as the government of Bangladesh, has been championing, along with, you know, the great work that the UN Capital Development Fund does in Bangladesh. And, you know, the interoperability is going to melt away one of the biggest barriers for large-scale adoption of digital payments in Bangladesh, which is cost. So I believe that with a responsible lens to digital wages, which focuses on truly making digital better than cash, these are the opportunities for sustained momentum and for building back better.
Thank you so much, Keyzom. Those are indeed very important points, especially around the interoperability platform that will drive down costs when it comes to digital financial services. I have one follow-up question for you. What do you see investors and development partners can do further to address the challenges facing the fintech and digital service provider ecosystem that can unlock further investments in the sector? How do you see the role of investors and development partners in this?
Sure. It's a really important question because there's a huge role for especially fintechs and innovations to play. And as we all recognize, across all the members of the Better Than Cash Alliance as well, digital payments are the foundation of how economies everywhere are growing and creating new services for citizens and consumers. And therefore, what we see is that with these accelerating trends, the agenda for responsible digital payments is ever more important if we are to include the next billion users, many of whom are, not the mainstream users for which the ecosystem is traditionally built, but they routinely face connectivity issues, have limited access to handsets, particularly smartphones, lack identification, have lower digital capabilities. And if we recognize these starting points and build a user experience around these lived realities, then we can truly be responsible. So therefore, I think the agenda of digital payments is not just a central bank or a financial services provider's agenda, but rather the important leadership that investors, as well as development partners such as the UN Capital Development Fund can play in ensuring that the right public-private partnerships are in place to drive these ecosystem changes. At the Alliance, we are leading the guidebook on responsible digital payments with our members, and they are basically a set of 9 guidelines that provides actions and examples. And we say that, what it means to be fair to users like RMG employees, as you know, many of them are women, many of them start with a higher barrier to access and usage. To be fair to them, we need to recognize that new payment innovations are extremely important. For example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, they are powerful tools to create better services, but they also often exacerbate systemic biases and they threaten to deepen discrimination, right? So therefore, I think that focus on that triple bottom line that we heard from Ms. Blom is an extremely important focus for investors in this space as well as for development partners. Secondly, we see that the growing adoption of digital payments is also generating unprecedented data, creating both opportunities but also risk as they work to improve efficiency and safety. And while leveraging this data to understand behaviors and preferences and create opportunities is great, they also need to be done responsibly so that it is about catalyzing economic empowerment and not abuse. And thirdly, as innovation along the value chain reaches the last mile, digital payments are going to expand to more and more users on the margins, and therefore the recourse around ensuring that they are getting the right kind of support, capability building is extremely important. And this onus to fix the problem is not just the onus on an RMG worker or a user, but rather the multiple players that are involved in the value chain to create digital financial service opportunities. And I would say that a successful transition to digital is going to require collaboration among a variety of stakeholders in pursuit of an inclusive and responsible digital payments ecosystem. And I believe investors and development partners with the government and the financial service providers, as well as industry bodies like BGMEA, have a vital role to play to create a robust ecosystem in which RMG workers can seamlessly transact. They can access their funds when they need it. There's functioning cash in, cash out ecosystems and networks, and there's increasing opportunities to use money digitally, as well as to ensure that digital usage is also creating new opportunities such as affordable credit without being over indebted. So, highly effective correlations is what is the need of the hour in Bangladesh, and with new investors and new partnerships with development partners, I think this is becoming extremely, within reach. And some of the next steps that are also coming up in pursuit of an inclusive and robust digital payments ecosystem in Bangladesh.
Thank you so much, Keyzom. You raised a few very important points, especially the government's commitment to digital, and also issues that we have to pay attention to make sure that digitalization is inclusive and does not exacerbate any issues when we go to digital. Thank you, distinguished speakers, for your points, particularly about the momentum of digital services, the government's commitment to digitalization, the challenges facing the industry in a post-COVID-19 scenario, and the investors and development partners' potential role in building back better through the potential of digital models. Here we are now entering the Q&A portion of the session. And we will continue the conversation with a few questions gathered. And I see there is one question here to Bernadette, firstly. How do you see the role of investors such as the Good Fashion Fund in improving both social and environmental sustainability in the sector in Bangladesh, and the role of digital models in this?
So the Good Fashion Fund enables manufacturers that we invest in to invest in impact equipment and implement it in their production facilities, and support them with technical, environmental and social knowledge. But not only knowledge, we actively help them, support them, implementing improvements on the sustainability side in their companies. And well, that will be very important for other investors also, and also we will actively share knowledge and lessons learned and demonstrate that such investments are feasible within the sector. And what role do we see for digitalization? Well, I think that digital platforms can, for example, improve transparency of wages, but not only of wages, also transparency for the workers on their rights, for instance. And it also can create a channel for workers to flag out safety issues such as violations, but also to give them a means to advocate their rights and improve their well-being. So it really gives them a better way of actually seeing, improve their conditions, their rights, and also the way of communication. And I think that also the COVID crisis has highlighted the importance of digital solutions in ensuring continuity in the value chains and the livelihoods, just building resilience against future crises and facilitating recovery in the COVID era and beyond.
Thank you, Bernadette. Indeed, there is potential for digital services to play a part in this building back a better industry from a sustainability and investor perspective. I have also one more question to Ms. Keyzom. The Better Than Cash Alliance are also working on digital financial services for specifically garment workers in other countries as well. What are the learnings from implementing such digital wage payments and use of digital financial services for garment workers from not only Bangladesh, but from other countries where Better Than Cash Alliance has worked, for example, Jordan? Are the results different than in Bangladesh, and what could we learn from it?
Thank you, Andreas. So at the Digital Wages Summit in Bangladesh in 2019, where there were significant commitments made by the government, by BGMEA, by everyone in the ecosystem. We also had a new member join the Better Than Cash Alliance and really come on board and champion this, not just in Bangladesh, but across the world. And that's the International Labour Organization, as well as Better Work, which is their flagship program with IFC that improves working conditions and business practices across the global garment industry. And by joining the alliance, they committed to increasing the use of responsible digital payments to boost financial inclusion, transparency, and efficiency. And this has become a really important way or forum through which we facilitate global learnings on this really important agenda of digital wage payments and the use of digital financial services for garment workers between Bangladesh, with Cambodia, India, Jordan, and others. And from a recent learning exchange among a variety of countries, for example, a representative from the government of India from textiles spoke about how early investments in the digital public infrastructure enable the RMG sector to better weather the pandemic. And there's also evidence that women in India increased labor force participation and liberalized gender norms when they received wages in their bank accounts that were also linked to their rural employment programs. And of course, we have significant lessons from Bangladesh in terms of really how the 6 different stakeholder groups came together and championed the responsible digital wages for RMG employees, but also recognizing that it's not just about, the current use and the cost, which are, sort of the front and center issues at the moment, but also in terms of how does it lead to better lives, better opportunities. We see lots of common themes but also differences. And, there's a lot of interest in Jordan to learn from Bangladesh's experience, particularly in terms of how the government's leadership has been pivotal, in terms of how an industry body as influential and effective as BGMEA can play a role in championing workers' economic empowerment. We're quite excited about this ability to facilitate the global learnings across the various countries in partnership, of course, with our member ILO and Better Work.
Thank you so much, Keyzom. And it's a good point about the learnings from India also, that they were able to better handle the crisis due to their current journey. They are later on in the journey compared to Bangladesh and other countries. I do have one more follow-up question to you, Ms. Keyzom. What are some examples of other current initiatives ongoing in continuing the digitalization journey of the sector in Bangladesh?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm so glad that we also have the Senior Secretary from the ICT division. The government of Bangladesh, great achievements, the opportunities that lie ahead as Bangladesh prepares for the year of Digital Bangladesh next year, 2021, and they have, the government has chosen RMG as one of their priority sectors, along with, of course, education, e-commerce, agriculture, and others. Really important work is already underway, led, of course, by the tremendous leadership of government and really important stakeholders such as BGMEA, as well as the UN Capital Development Fund.
Thank you so much, Keyzom. So that is finishing the Q&A session of our conversation today. Thank you so much, all the speakers, for our discussion. As a short summary, I believe it can be summarized as indeed there are investment opportunities in technology and digitalization that could strengthen the sector from a sustainability and competitiveness perspective in a post-COVID-19 scenario. And there are models where investors, development partners, manufacturers, and ecosystem of digital service providers can work together to realize this. Yet there are challenges to increase adoption and realize its potential, where further investment and knowledge, technical assistance can unlock opportunities and facilitate the change. Thank you so much, all distinguished panel participants, for this conversation today. And thank you for the audience for listening and for your participation. Ashraf, I will leave it to you now to close the session and to introduce a honorable guest speaker with a closing speech. Ashraf, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas, for moderating this last and important panel of this Dhaka event. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the day and end of the event in Dhaka, which we UNCDF in association with Singapore FinTech Festival jointly organized. So, for the day long, we had 3 sessions and also 1 opening session. So in the opening session, our Honorable State Minister for ICT, Mr. Junaid Ahmed Pollock MP, inaugurated today's event, and also UNCDF Global Digital Lead Fransson Copini also spoke on this opening session. So now we are going to close this session. We have with us our honorable guest for this closing session, Mr. Zeaul Alam, PAA. He is the Senior Secretary of ICT Division, Governments of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. We know that under his able leadership, the ICT Division has achieved a lot, I mean, in the last few years, regarding blockchain policy, AI policy, and a lot of other initiatives are already underway under his able leadership. So we invite our honorable guest for this closing session to say some words to us and close this session formally. Over to you, honorable guest, Zeaul Alam, PAA, Senior Secretary, ICT Division.
Thank you, Mr. Ashraf. Also thanks to Mr. Andreas for very excellent moderation. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I had the honor to delivering the closing remarks for what has been a most remarkable and insightful series of discussion and events. Distinguished guests, panelists, thank you for participating and sharing your wonderful insights. I believe this year's Singapore FinTech Festival has done what it should to do by providing a platform for sharing experiences and overall lessons learned and the pandemic response so far, and helping to chart a way forward towards a more digitally inclusive society. The panel gives us a quick look of need for digital transformation for micro SMEs in Bangladesh. It is no doubt that the impact of COVID-19 a small business has been dire. Many of them faced numerous challenges such as supply chain disruption, a decline in demand, lack of capital, and access to correct business and health-related information. These restrictions as challenges have always been there, especially for informal business. But COVID-19 has shown us the pathway to digital transformation. Under this guidance of prudent leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, we have come a long way in trying to address such challenges. One notable measure that was taken this year by Bangladesh Bank, as you know, was the introduction of a new kind of business account, that is micro small enterprise for micro small enterprise, and can now open their business accounts without trade license. However, as we learned from the panel, there still lies an opportunity to further build back or provide more improved solution for informal enterprises. Again, we learned about the investor side of things and how Bangladesh can better leverage digital solution for mobilizing domestic savings towards SDGs investments. We are hopeful that the learnings learned from the panel will help us in creating policies that will help Bangladesh to talk into this resource mobilization. We also listened the role of digital solutions to accelerate the green and sustainable R&D sector. The ready-made garments manufacturing sector is an important driver to Bangladesh's economies and has been a driving forces in creating employment, lifting millions of out of extreme poverty. However, there are several challenges faced by the industry. Some that were discussed during the panel were high supply chain risk for investors and sustainability challenges. Additionally, now the industry faces a new set of challenges that are a result of the opening of health pandemic. This session addressed the importance of digital service, and we need to prepare the workers for digital transformation. The experiences that have been shared to this discussion confirm that the pandemic has disproportionately affected the cottage, micro and small business, particularly the informal business in Bangladesh. On the other hand, it is also shown as the pathway to digital transformation and the opportunity to better leverage digital transformation for the best majority of the enterprise to build a better future. We have also observed the sustainability of mobilizing domestic micro savings through digital platform, investment areas, and business models and best practices. And lastly, we observed the role of digital solutions in accelerating the green and sustainable R&D sectors. The outcome and the discussions of all the sessions have highlighted key points and solutions which we believe will help us shape future policies and ultimately get closer to dream of our digital Bangladesh. And as you know, we are making Bangladesh digital, and by this way we are making Bangladesh happy, prosperous, and Bangalore. Earlier this evening, our Honorable State Minister, Mr. Junaid Ahmed MP, spoke about the progress of Bangladesh. Indeed, Bangladesh has made tremendous progress over the last decade. He also spoke about the hardship and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. I believe the conference outcome will serve well to further address the impact of the COVID pandemic. What is clear today's events is that the journey remains. As we are faced with new and unknown challenges, we must together build a more resilient and inclusive economy. Indeed, this phenomenon is not limited to the developing world. Advanced economies are also grappling the distributional consequences of the pandemic. How to do then move forward more to address the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic may have unleashed unprecedented hardship on vulnerable groups, such as particularly those who are operating the informal business as micro SME sectors. But there are opportunities to rebuild our economies, and while at it, we rebuild them in a manner that leads to more inclusive and resilience. Making real progress will require bold action to address the underlying pre-existing vulnerabilities that have only been worsened by the current pandemic, so that we rebuild a more inclusive, sustainable and resilient future. We must take this moment to reevaluate and adapt development strategies and policies that can accelerate resilience building and promote a post-COVID-19 sustainable recovery. I believe that this conference was very informative and fruitful for all participants. I sincerely hope that discussions on these issues will continue in various international forums for innovations to contribute to the development of Bangladesh. I thank you for your kind attention. To conclude, let me again thank the moderators, analysts, members, and other guests for sharing with all of us over the past hours. With this view, I would like to conclude. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining us and share your words with the viewers and participants and our honorable moderators, panelists. So your word of encouragement will drive UNCDF in Bangladesh to work for a better Bangladesh. So thank you for joining. So dear viewers and participants, we have come to the end of the Dhaka satellite event for Singapore FinTech Festival and UNCDF joint initiative. So building back better in an inclusive digital economy in Bangladesh. So thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting and engaging with questions and comments. And we say goodbye to you for today, and we will surely engage with you in any future events. Thank you.